right, everybody. So with that, it's time for our very first panel discussion for the evening. Well, this one's all about the marketer's guide to contextual advertising. We'll explore how brands can foster lasting relationship with customers and in an increasingly digital marketplace. Well, to chair the session, I'd like to request Ms. Deepti Bhadauria, the Chief Strategy Officer, HiveMinds, to please join us on stage. Everybody, a bigger round of applause, please, for Ms. Deepti Bhadauria, the Chief Strategy Officer, HiveMinds. And now I'd like to ask a panelist to please join on stage. Mr. Sandesh Gupta, Director Growth, Mobile Premier League. Everybody, please put your hands together as we have a panelist join on stage. Ms. Tara Kapur, Market Head, India Duolingo English Test, to please come forward. Ms. Vanda Ferrao, the CMO from Wow Skin Science, to please join us on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as we have a panelist join on stage.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, panelists. It is my pleasure to host this discussion today. We're all here to understand more of content marketing, contextual advertising. And at Quoraverse, I think it's a great opportunity for us to connect with industry experts and see how marketers are using content and context for creating enriching brand experiences. With that, I want to start this discussion with my first question, which is, it is also an eye-opener with because all three of you represent great brands and very new age brands. So how are you using contextual marketing in your campaigns currently? You can start, yeah.
Sure. I think contextual plays an important role. It's a part of the the overall media mix that whatever you're doing, right? For any brand which would like to scale and would like to create that trust and everything in the market, I think you need to take help of platforms which are primarily built on the contextual or the content part of things. At present, obviously, like for MPL, we are doing a lot of top of the funnel campaigns, middle of the funnel campaigns, bottom of the funnel campaigns, and I think contextual also plays an important role to build that kind of a brand advocacy and build that kind of a brand awareness into the market and help us out in getting the final conversions as well. Because I think it's not specific to, obviously, like I represent for a gaming company, but I think previously when I was also working for some D2C or e-commerce brand, they're also like wherever you need some kind of a research, some kind of an understanding about whether this product is good or maybe the company is good or bad, because generally a startup has to build that kind of a overall persona also into the market that we are legit and there's no fraud or something like that. So it helps in all the pieces, right? To grow your product, to grow your business, to grow your brand name as well, your brand awareness as well. And I think this is how I think we're utilizing all these contextual platforms to build that kind of awareness into the market.
What about you, Tara?
Awesome. For us, I think our product, one, is a disruptor in a very old traditional category, right? So, and it's a very niche audience for study abroad, right? So you're trying to find a needle in the haystack, and you're trying to find them at a point when they're searching for how they go about this process, right? So the timing of it is everything, right? So you need to, one, target the consumer based on exactly what they're looking for. So for some of our consumers, our price point makes a difference. For some of them, it's trust and credibility that this is a product that's accepted across the universities that they're applying for. For some of them, it's, hey, I'm on a super tight deadline. I forgot about taking this test, and I need something that will deliver the result as quickly as possible, right? So and these are just a few examples. There's 100 different messages for the different kind of student that you're looking to target. And context is everything in those cases, right? So for us, one, identifying the problem that the student is putting out there. What is the solution we can provide, and how do we communicate that message? Because if I communicate the wrong message to that consumer, I've missed an opportunity, and that's that one student that I'm trying to hunt for in that mass of consumers out there, especially in a market like India. So for us, we've built it in a manner where it's around a very hyper-targeted key search, and then making sure the right creative is going to the right consumer. So it's 90% of what we're doing on the marketing front.
For you, Vanda, it's a product where highly involved and also a very experimental product, and you are a new age brand. So for you, how is it different or same when you think of context and content for your campaigns?
See, there are pros and cons. Contextual marketing is when there is an intent, right? You're going out and you're searching or researching for a product, service, or something you don't know. In our case, shampoos and conditioners are what people typically buy. So there is not much of a thought which goes into it. However, what we see is in certain kinds of I would say science first spaces or brands which we have, for example, active cosmetics, right? That is a path where we can actually educate the consumers. For example, you're using kojic acid on your face or using niacinamide, right? Those are not frequently used things. So people typically go and search for information, and contextually placing yourself in those places where people are searching just makes all the sense. And I think it's a very seamless way of doing things. And in today's time and age, I think contextual marketing is really, really picking up because it's far more organic and less intrusive. And we know what's happening with cookies right now. There's a huge movement towards, So therefore, where user behavior, when you place ads based on past metrics to see, and therefore you see an ad, it could be intrusive. For example, there are so many times when we've searched for chicken recipes and we've seen treadmill ads, right? I mean, to say it's not really. However, when I'm a runner, so when I go to sites to see how to improve my pace and I see, for example, a Nike ad there, then it makes all the more sense. So I think contextual marketing is here to stay, and if it done well, it can really yield benefits.
Got it. So for you are saying when there's a new age product or where there's no awareness, it's playing a role. However, now for, let's say for Tara, your product has a very long search cycle. And very few customers to actually buy. And for you, it's a gaming product, right? So it's almost an impulse category. So for both of you, how is it different? Because it clearly says, and when you don't know, it's a new product, there is a lot to research. But with long search cycles or when no search cycle, how is it playing a role?
Yeah, I think for us, search has a massive role to play, and how you sort of put that in what that consumer is looking for is essential for us, right? So it's a little bit of what you were talking about when it comes to I'm looking at which universities are accepted or what is the score. Can I place my advertising on that communication, or can I first have an article that talks about where I'm accepted, what the test does, what are the benefits, why is it better than the other products out there, and then place the ads along with that, right? So I think that helps us a lot. And for us, we have to find the multiple touch points, right? So when somebody starts that journey, they first want to understand what the process is to study abroad in the first place, right? So what is the editorial guidance you can give there? As they go ahead in that journey, this is just one part of that entire process, right? So a lot of our communication is get this out of the way, right? Like finish this off, check that one out of your 100 things off your checklist and do it in the easiest, most convenient manner, right? So we try to push ourselves as a brand that is there to help. And we know that we're one piece of that entire pie in a very stressful journey for a student. So we try and provide as much information about the entire journey, and then we become that brand that's helping that student as well as providing them one thing on their checklist.
Okay. So what you are saying is as much as possible through the journey.
Yeah.
What about you, Sandesh? Because there is no journey. I mean, click
True.
and buy and click and start playing.
Yeah, so I think fortunately we are good over there because obviously we are in the market for real money gaming. So people obviously come over there to play and to win money. But I think the challenging part over here is the fraud, right? Because I think you have to obviously be on top of all the things whenever you're seeing something like a fraud, because that is one of the thing which all the real money gaming companies generally deals with, right? And obviously, like, even if there is one single fraud in a day, right, people just go here and there and start talking about it. So I think for us, all this contextual platform plays that role, right? That to go there and to talk about that, how we are taking care of all these fraud things, how we are providing us safe or a fair play environment, because otherwise it's very difficult to build that kind of a trust in this gaming industry. So it's a little different game for us because we don't, I think, as I mentioned, I think we are fortunate enough that we are getting a good amount of user influx, but to deal with all that negativity, because obviously you will do all the things, right? But obviously this industry is like that fraud has to happen, right? So how you can control it and how you can create a positive awareness about it is something where I think the content and the contextual is playing a role. And I think if the content is something like if there is an article which talks about all that thing, and you are then saying and going upfront that how you are different, right, from whatever is happening, right, is basically give you an edge, right? Is basically creating that kind of a trust value for your users and giving them a better experience in that front. So I think that one typical thing is basically is helping us for our retained users, or for even for the new users who are coming into that journey. So removing that fear of fraud and that piece basically.
Okay. So what you're saying is diminishing the fear and building trust is where you are using. Interesting. So Quora as such has very good content, and also now the content creators are verified. So the content is also good. So can you all give me one example each of how you are using Quora in your campaigns? We start with you, Vanda.
So we traditionally we've always seen Quora as a channel where we can do more because it is also about new regimes, new products, new treatments, and whatever is breakthrough. However, the business, the BPC business is very visual intensive, right? I mean to say, typically what do? You see an influencer using your product and skin becoming brighter. You see ads, you see YouTubes, right? Typically video-based platforms are where you see visually captivating content, and Quora being a text focused one has always been a challenge. That being said, I've seen Quora having a lot of interesting formats right now. It's natively done where ads also have videos. It may not be as visually enriching as other platforms we currently use, but I see steps have been made in that direction. So specific use cases are for that will be when science-led products, right? Innovation products is where people spend a little more money, and I think evidence-based or claim-based advertising makes a lot of sense. And therefore, when you have certain claims which are static claims or doctor-driven manifestations or advocacy, I think in those kind of use cases, Quora can be a medium for us to use.
Okay. What about you, Tara?
Yeah, I think for us it's a bit of the opposite, right? For us, text-based actually has a massive role to play because we're a product where positive word of mouth and referral plays a massive role, and coming directly from a student's perspective is actually the best way for us to, build that trust, right? So we are a product category where, because we're so transactional in that consumer's journey, you will very rarely see a student be like, this is a great experience, because they're expecting it to be a great experience. But the student that's had an invalid score is the first one to go out and complain, right? And a lot of the cases is, it's a high-stakes test, you've probably not followed the rules, which is why you've gotten an invalid score. But for a student, they're not thinking about that, right? They're like, I have a deadline to meet, and I will rage about this on the internet, and they will ask questions, and they will post it across all these platforms. And what we've seen, especially on platforms like Quora, is when you have these long threads, you will eventually have a student who's had a positive experience share their perspective. And a lot of the times, we just promote those responses, right? We promote the ones which are positive, and these are testimonials that have just, we've gone through the platform and identified that. But through that process, Quora has excellent SEO, right? So for us, when you see it popping up high on search, it really helps us build that positive word of mouth and trust for our product. So we've actually started getting into a process of building our own response as well in these threads. So we become more accessible as a brand, and we're having a conversation with the consumer, right? So as soon as they raise their complaint, we drive that back to our consumer support, and it builds our authenticity as well. So we're having a conversation, and I think that's a great way to use Quora as a platform. It is a two-way street with your consumer.
Got it. So you're saying building on the conversation, which is
Yeah.
organically popping up.
And then boosting, right? So
Got
you
it, yeah,
use
yeah.
it from both aspects.
Got it. What about you, Sandesh?
I think three buckets. One, I already talked about fraud, right? I think over there also the winning factor for us is the same user who is creating that kind of a noise, right? And when things are getting sorted, he's again coming back and editing the content. So I think that's something like a win for us and basically creates that positive, for the brand. The other two buckets are primarily one. Whenever I think you are planning to launch any new game, so in gaming community, it's also about that, what's coming next, what's happening, and you need to create that kind of a buzz in that community. And I think beautifully we are using these platforms to create that kind of a buzz that something is coming soon and what you can expect more in this quarter, in the coming quarter, or in this month, or whatever, like in the week. Even in the existing games, what new things we are going to feature, or something on those lines. So I think that is again very engaging and very enriching for our community to to go through that content. And obviously I think, as Vanda mentioned, that video is something very early for Quora, but I think still content consumptions are happening over there whenever people are searching, and with the help of great SEO, those things are coming up. Third, I think for us is because the industry and the community that we are having is primarily also little hungry for winnings, and they always look for the tips and tricks, so that if I am and obviously like video content works really better for that. But again, I think there is a audience who would like to also go and read about it and try to understand how I can do those things. So I think a content building on that perspective is also helping us a lot. So I think these are the three areas. I think one, fraud. Second is, I think, anything new, and third is how I can improve my gaming skills or enhancing my current way of whatever I'm playing. I think a lot of content is going in that perspective and to the community.
So what I hear is in various formats, how Quora is helping you is helping out with the deep content, which is about the brand, and B is building on the community, in both in terms of helping out with answers, questions, and building credibility, and also the newness, what you talked about. So all three of you represent three very different brands, but I'm very sure that there's one thing that unites all three of you, and that is your focus on metrics and attributions. So whether you are advertising for skincare or gaming or edutech product, you will be very, very clear on what is your marketing dollar returning to you. So when it comes to contextual marketing, what matrices are you using? And how are you using to attribute, or what do you think is the right way to attribute the success to campaigns? We can start with anyone, Sandesh. Yeah.
I think yes, numbers always is the first thing when you do marketing, and when you are primarily doing that growth or performance role. I think for us, as I mentioned, if you're looking Quora as your last click or your bottom of the funnel kind of a campaign, obviously it's not the right measurement, right? It primarily plays a role in the user journey, and if you're looking directly from the angle of conversions and all such things, generally I think there you will not find a lot of value. But again, I think that is not the right way of looking into it, right? For us, the way we look primarily is a data driven model, or you can say how Quora is playing its role, whether it is somewhere in the journey, or be it first click, be it middle of the funnel, or wherever, right? So there are two things which we are doing. One, obviously, with all the tools like GA and all, we've set it up in a way that it gives an equal weightage, or like weightage attribution to the platforms. So we can at least say that yes, this is helping in some way. Internally also, we have our own tools where we do a weekly check on the different platforms and the money you are spending and how exactly these tools are helping. And primarily what we have seen is that Quora plays an important role in the middle of the funnels, right? So the final attribution, whenever you're seeing that, okay, it is finally converting through your UAC campaign, your Google search campaign, or even your meta campaigns, whether there is any touch point with respect to Quora, right? So that is one thing that we always check. Second is, I think the direct metric is more about the traffic, the kind of the traffic you are getting on the pages, because obviously you can do certain kind of hyperlinks, and people can go from from Quora to your website or to your apps, right? So I think that is a important metric for us. And how you can measure the quality is more about the traffic which is coming, how are the attributes for that. Basically, It's the same thing like your bounce rates, your engagements and everything. So I think typical matrices over there, but I think the key matrix for that is this. You look for traffic, you look for its quality, and to support that this platform is working, you also look for your attribution with respect to where it is coming in the journey of the final conversions. So I think very simple, these two things we are always look, and then obviously you can look for other 10 things that you are looking for in case you're doing any deep dive.
Okay. So you are saying you are looking at the touch point in the conversion journey.
Yes.
That is one, and second is the quality of traffic that is coming to
Yes.
Quora. What about you, Tara? What are the matrices you are
Yeah,
using?
I think similar in the sense that, obviously just looking at broad clicks doesn't help because you can generate high volume of clicks, but what we look at is quality and qualified registrants, right? So to register for our test is free. Obviously once you register, you then go into the payment process. So anyone can register, right? So we have a metric where we look at what a qualified registrant is, and that's somebody who has high intent to study abroad. That's the baseline. So the volume of quality registrants that we get per platform is something that we measure. And again, that falls into the mid-funnel kind of a metric. The other part that we will measure then is the cost per qualified registrant, right? So which platform is helping us bring that cost down is obviously a platform that we will prioritize more. Beyond that, for top of funnel, it's very hard to, this is the marketer's biggest challenge, is where do you attribute your metrics to, right? So we try not to split that across our platforms, but we look at our priority regions and we do brand awareness measurements to see how we're measuring up to competitors or how we're measuring up to ourselves in previous years. That helps us on the top of funnel. And then obviously at the bottom, it's conversion, which again, it's hard to attribute to specific platforms because there's so many touch points for that consumer before they finally decide to make the purchase. But for us, we try and look at it as a sum of all parts, and obviously conversion is our end goal. But qualified registrant, I would say, is the core one we would look at per platform.
Okay. For you, Vanda, it is more about the information dissemination.
So I mean to say
how's my-
skincare isn't that complicated, right? I mean to say Quora also is a place where you come and you seek information, you digest the information, you make a concerted choice. So the use case I would feel is relevant is the middle of the funnel where you're actually helping build consideration of why to use the product, and also in evolved categories. I mean to say there are cheaper options to do top of the funnel in terms of awareness. Say for example, this is my Nature Derma, for example, is a brand which is in active skincare. There are cheaper, I mean to say funnels, channels to be able to do that. But in terms of consideration, right? So I'll tell you a synergy is we use influencers as a medium to speak about the product, the usage, to see before, after, to see the benefits of it. So I think some part of it can also be done by Quora, where people are anyways actively seeking, and with contextual ads there you can actually take it one step further. But however, from there directly to actually, even if I link it and see how many are coming to my website, I don't think there will be a huge amount of traffic per se, because clicks will not really happen there. What actually can happen is people who are interacting with the Quora ads, that cookie pool, we can actually set up a retargeting ecosystem to be able to then take them to the next step forward, because then you will show ads which will help make that transaction. Quora is not a place where you actually do transactional ads like offer ads, right? You have to do educative ads. So then with the cookie pool, you actually retarget with other set of ads. So then the attribution is easier. That being said, it's a long-term thing in terms of building consideration. So what metric would immediately move? I don't think anything will immediately move to have a direct attribution. It's a funnel. I mean, it's similar like lead generation, right? Over a period of time, maybe you can see in terms of your track how it's moving, and maybe basis the money you deploy, you see how many qualified leads would lead to better transaction. But over a period of time, immediately, it'll never be a last click medium for sure.
Got it. So what you're saying, since it's a content platform and the context develop over the period of time, so it is not right to maybe immediately measure, but it is definitely enriching the customer funnel experience through the funnel, therefore giving better returns when it comes to conversion.
Like to add one thing that we have done with Quora, I think, in one of my company is, I think, because obviously you have to show the value, right? You can talk about all these things, but how you can show that value, right? So we have done a small pilot where I've just enabled Quora in one location, right? And the impact that it has, basically what we have seen is primarily how it has helped in improving the conversion rate of other channels, right? So that is also one thing that you can see, right? For example, you're doing some content or some kind of a publish, for creating that kind of a consideration on Quora, and finally people who are searching and finally purchasing those things is my, and again you can do a A/B, you can do post and pre-analysis, right? And we have clearly seen a lift in terms of a conversion rate on our Meta, on our Google platform. So I think that is also one thing. Obviously it's not direct, but an indirect pilot you can do and try to see whether there is any uplift or not.
So you're saying since the customer pool is same and the customer is omni-channel, so the goodness of one content platform is getting passed on to other conversion on other platforms. Very interesting.
This helps us in boosting that conversion on other channels.
Got it. So since we are at the now on the topic of value, I'll ask a question again, very close, must be very close to your heart, which is about the cost, the budgets. So there is, there's whole investment in creating content. And then there is this whole expectation or another expense in distributing content. Okay, and irrespective of how good your content is, you cannot rely on organic only to disseminate to the right audiences. So how do you make this call between, what to spend on creating and how much to then spend on distributing? You can start with Vanda.
This is a really long topic. I mean to say, typically rule of thumb is for bigger ads, right? Whatever you spend on the ad creation, the broadcast should at least be 4 or 5 times of what you've spent on that, and that's how you would believe that you've really, vetted the asset. But in today's time and age, when you're making, for example, a banner ad or a static or a GIF, right? It doesn't really cost a lot. But you also run it in campaigns which run forever because they will be best performing campaigns, right? And how do you actually take a call? Like, no one will take it out from the ad set because I'm going to say it's working, right? Why do I disrupt something which is perfectly working? So I think in terms of top of the funnel ads, there you can have a rule of thumb where it is 1:4, 1:5. But your everyday, promo ads which actually help you bottom of the funnel, which help you get transactions, it's very difficult to assign certain things.
Attribution, okay. The cost of distribution.
Cost to it, and it's also depending on category, right? I mean to say there are categories which are always on. For example, BPC or food, right? I mean to say they are monthly purchase. It goes, so you have to be always on to be relevant to these consumers. So through the funnel, you'll have things which are always on. Then campaign based, basically basis seasonality you'll change it. But I mean to say, if it's working, why do you change it? So there is always a call which you take basis industry, basis time of the year, basis campaign. I don't think there is one size fits all.
Okay. Anything, any of you want to add?
Yeah, I think the 80-20 rule is sort of what we follow in principle, which majority of our budget is going towards media and distribution, but then you do have mediums that fall in the middle, right? Like, where do you attribute an influencer, right? Because they're both a distribution tool as well as creative, production cost, all of that, right? But so I think for us, we do broadly fall in that 80-20, but depending on campaign periods or what you're trying to develop, is there something that you're doing in a different way, etc. But yeah, I think essentially pretty much the same.
Same for you?
Similar, yes. Okay. I think nothing changed for us, but I think right now what I'm seeing is like platforms like Google, Meta and all these are so advanced, right, that typically optimize for what, like your either CAC or for ROAS, right? And it's not like 5 years back when you try to add creative to see whether this is going to work or not. It's more about you add creative and you need now more creatives. Like, it's not like only one creative which will go, right? So you need 20 plus creative. It's more responsive. It's it's very dynamic in nature now, right? So you cannot have that kind of a thing that you were doing 5-6 years back, right? And at current scenario, I think it's more optimized with the kind of algorithms that they have. You never know what kind of creatives will be picked, and it will be very different for very different channel, right? So you cannot, again, I think as both Tara and Vanda mentioned, it's very difficult, right, to define that, okay, this will go and I have to, promote this unless what I think you are putting a lot of money to create that, and then you need that kind of, distribution for that particular piece. Rest, I think for BAU or for performance or for growth, I think it's more about just adding and seeing what is working on what platform. So there is no, I think, very simple, straightforward answer for that.
Got it. So 80-20 generally, but yeah, hard to define. So now I'll ask, this is the last question. I think we are running out of time also. This question is very close to my heart because as HiveMinds, we work with so many different brands, marketers, and we become their extended teams. But when it comes to content or contextual marketing, now there is a new, I would not like to call it a problem, but there's a new issue which is getting created. One is already marketing teams are, performance team, brand team, PR team, and now there is a content team which comes in, and then there is an agency team, and all the teams work their best in their own silos. However, content is, pervasive. Like we are using interchangeably ad and content, right? So when it comes to integrated marketing plan, it becomes really important that every piece of content makes sense and talks to each other. So how do you manage to make the teams talk to each other? Like how do you plan integrated teams for you to be really able to, ace the contextual marketing game? Tara or Vanda, whoever can start.
See, that depends on culture right now. So silos does happen. This is your JD, my JD, and everyone is working in their own walled cities, as we call it. But if the objective is bigger, right? And I mean, say everyone moves to a certain goal, I think it's easier. That being said, yes, everyone should have a JD, but I mean to say when it comes to an idea, right? There should be nothing stopping a team from either placing that idea on the table or picking it up. I'll give you an example. Contextual marketing, yes, you all remember the same time last year there was this viral trend. Contextual, yes, because it was just looking like a wow, right? So there was this thing which happened, this lady in East Delhi who said, so beautiful, so elegant, just looking like a wow. Now that is contextual marketing, yes, because there is wow associated to it, right? And who gave us this idea, right? Literally there was this agency who was working with us and they track and they say, this is going to become big, this is going to become big. So there were these early, signals. And obviously there was skepticism, like how will that gross piece of content even, it was such a good idea. And can you believe, so it came from the agency. And then my social media team with the agency, they parked themselves outside that lady's house for 3 days because all the other brands had made a beeline already. And then said, no, this is contextual, now it's becoming big. And then it became so big, right? And the founders were involved, investors were involved, and like, kya chal raha, you're making it big. And we're like, yes, but she should talk to us, right? But it was the agency who actually came with us to Delhi and the social media team who then convinced the lady and they shot, right? And then they attributed it to wow in a very interesting way because scripting, production, everything had to be done. It happened in 3.5 days. And that also became big because organically it was really very, very seamless. So I think if you build a culture where every idea is a good idea and people come together to execute it, I don't think there will be silos.
Yeah, I love that. I love that example. I think it's amazing. For us, we're primarily a remote organization, right? So one is we're lean, so we don't have so many different segregations, which I think helps. The other is because we're remote, the time we get together is very precious and we tend to over-communicate, right? So I think it's essential. I mean, we're in the business of communication, right? So you need to over-communicate between each department in terms of what's going on and how you're planning to put that message out and tie everyone together with that, right? So it's kind of that, bandmaster and sort of keeping everyone playing the same tune. I think that's helped document everything, keep everyone on track. The basic hygiene, I think, of keeping everyone on the same page. And if internally you're able to do that, you can then translate that message to your agencies as well. And that makes a pretty streamlined process for us. The challenge that we have, though, is we're multiple products under the umbrella of Duolingo, right? And how do you communicate similar messages across products is something that we're trying to identify, because we have this amazing brand halo of a brand like Duolingo, but we're trying to build awareness for something like the Duolingo English Test, right? And how do we work together across products is something that we're trying to build and leverage across each team, because that's where you have duplication.
Okay, so the power of idea or the power of project management. Any other secret that you are using for integrating the teams, and then we'll wrap.
I can definitely relate with these two things. I think two more things for us. I think one is again common to all the business, which is transparency. Because what I've seen that when you're working with agencies and your extended partners, you discuss a lot internally, but the same thing you are not able to communicate to the team sometimes, right? And I think that creates a difference of opinion, and sometimes what you are expecting not coming out. So I think that is one key thing that I always follow in my day-to-day routine, that I used to provide that kind of a transparency, that whatever we are discussing internally, it should not be like it, whether you want to execute it, you don't want to execute it, should be communicated to the team in a manner that they should also understand from where we are coming, right? That if you're not doing this, there is a reason. It's not like I just said, okay, let's not do it, right? So I think that is one fundamental or the key principle that I generally follow. And I think related to the industry that I am, we were talking backstage as well. It's more about the legalities of the things, right? So, like, I take care of the US business, and I think you cannot just go and talk about anything on the content or on the creative. So for us, I think marketing, agency, and then there is a legal department from which we have to take a green, and then only we can go out, right? So I think that's an additional step, and I think a very important step, because the segment where you are in, or the industry where you are in, I think requires that kind of a person who can just oversee the things, so that you're not facing such any issues in the
so you're integrating the teams with the power of fear.
Yes.
Then okay,
Yes.
fine. So I think different things for different people, but it all comes together. So I had a wonderful time talking to all of you. I think Time's Up has been there for more than 5 minutes, so it's time for us to wrap up. Thank you so much for a lovely
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it up. Another big round of applause to all of them for such a wonderful session on the Marketer's Guide to Contextual Advertising. Thank you very much, Ms. Deepti. Thank you very much, Mr. Sandesh, Ms. Tara, and Mr. Vanda Ferrao. Thanks a lot.